Hello art class. So this video is going to show you a little bit about how to paint with alternative supplies and a quick review of some basic watercolor technique that you can use with your alternative supplies. So I have gathered here a pencil, not mechanical. I have some watercolor brushes, but we won't actually be using them today. I want us to try using things you might have found around your house. So I have a makeup brush that I've wiped clean, some Q-tips, and some toothpicks. Here I have what actually I always use when I'm painting on my own, not in class, is a toilet paper roll. It's super absorbent, so it gets the water wicked away quickly from what you're using as a brush, and it lasts a long time. This toilet paper roll I've been using for 4 years, and it still has some life left in it, so it's quite economical. Water to wash my brushes. I have some soy sauce, some tea that I have been steeping for about 40 minutes, so to get as strong as I can, it's black tea, and I pulled a shot of espresso. Regular coffee would work, but espresso is even thicker, so it will help. If you have instant coffee, that would probably work even better because you can use a lot of the granules with just a little bit of water. All right, and then for what we're going to be painting on, I have some cardboard that I got a magazine mailed to me in. I have some paper from a book that you can see I've been using for art projects for quite a while. It only has about a quarter of it left. And then I also just have a multimedia or mixed media sketchbook. So it's not the same quality of paper as a watercolor paper, but it is thicker. So real quick, just to go through, I practiced with the supplies beforehand. So I have some things to show you first. When painting on the cardboard, you have to be very patient. The first layer turns out really light, as you can see here. That's just one layer of the coffee painted on here. And then you can layer up beyond that to make darker spots, but it takes a long time. So if you're going to use any of these methods for painting or these materials for painting, you're going to need to use patience to layer up the color. Paper, like as in the book, it works a lot better. You can see I've got some nice lights, the dog's nose, and it gets a bit darker. I also use my pencil to add in the darkest spots, and later I'll probably go in again with the coffee again and add in even more texture. But you can see it's still a mild color. There's not a lot of difference. And then for our demonstration today, I'm going to be using the mixed media. Let me find an empty page here. I've got one, but I'm going to be using this. And so what we're going to do for starters is just, we're going to try out doing a wash. So if you'll remember, a wash is pretty much a wet on wet technique where you wet your page and then you go back with color and you add the color in, trying to make it even from the top to the bottom. So I'm going to use my makeup brush. I think using a brush with this technique is probably easiest unless you're just doing a small area. A small area would work fine with a Q-tip, but to try to get across a big area will just end up streaky. So I'm going to start by dipping my brush in the water and just quickly add some water across my entire page. All right, so the makeup brush is some of the bristles from it are falling off. That's all right. When it dries, we can just pick those right off. Okay, now I'm actually going to dip into the tea because I want to see how that will work on the white page. So just dip it and go ahead and saturate it. And it's really mild in color, but we're just going to go ahead and layer that up. Until I have a nice base layer. Okay, So that is there. I'm going to go through it now and try to get off some of these bits. There we go. All right, so that is just doing a wash. It's really light in color with the tea. If you want something darker, the soy sauce or the coffee will do that for you. Now we're going to take it from just a basic wash to a gradient wash. So I'm actually going to add some of the coffee in at the top and see if that's a lot darker. Ah, it is. Oh, it's kind of foamy too. All right. So I'm going to add that, and because I want it to be graded, I'm not going to keep adding as I go down. Instead, I'm just going to work with the color I have at the top and just keep going in a gentle brush back and forth, so the color gets smaller and smaller as I go down. And then I'll do it again. You're going to notice that the paper that you use, unless you're using cardboard, is going to start to roll and wrinkle a little bit. So to flatten when you're done, you're just going to want to press it between two books. Should flatten it nicely. So I'm not happy because I feel like the color isn't dark enough at the top compared to the bottom. So I'm just going to go ahead and add one more layer of dark along the top. So I want it to be, yeah, that's a little better. Alrighty. All right. Another method that we learned a few weeks back before we went on break was the method of color liftoff. So if at this point you're still not happy enough with how light the bottom is in compared to the top on your gradient, you can actually use a color liftoff. So for this, I'm going to use a dry portion of my toilet paper roll when it doesn't have a lot of color. So I'm going to use this spot here. And while it's still damp, I'm just going to go ahead and blot out some of that color on the bottom to lighten it up a little bit. And I don't know, you can kind of see here where there's a line of demarcation where I'm taking off the color and I haven't taken color off there. So I'm going to blot that out a little bit by just kind of dabbing upward. And then maybe using my brush that I have already washed and I've dried to go ahead and smooth it out so that there's no firm line. So now it's a little bit lighter on the bottom than it is on the top. And it's starting to, you can see here where it's starting to pucker. So I think we better not add any more water right now to that and just let it dry. So that's just kind of some wash background techniques you can use. When you're using something that's not meant for watercolor, you have to dry it between the different stages. Otherwise, it'll just end up a complete disaster. But if you don't want any kind of background wash or gradient color or anything like that, and you just want to jump right into painting something like I did with the dog here, you can just go ahead and do so. So I'm going to try out with a toothpick, and I'm going to try in the soy sauce. And you can just dip it in and then just try drawing and see what happens. So all right. So there I have started. The beginnings of a bird. And this works really nicely with a toothpick. You do have to kind of keep dipping again and again, so it can get a little bit tiresome, but you can get some really good textures. I think it'd be interesting to add the two techniques of the makeup brush and the toothpick together. So like once you've done a wash, go back in with a toothpick. The one thing you want to be careful of with that though is if your paper has a wash on it, it is already going to be a little bit more tender, and so you could end up scraping right through the paper if you're not careful with your toothpick. This gets, it's kind of a one mark wonder though. It doesn't get a lot of different kind of marks out of it. I'm trying to color a larger space by rolling it on its side, but that doesn't work very well. Okay. All right, so since I'm not able to get a large swath painted with this, I'm going to go ahead and set it aside and try using a Q-tip. So I'm going to roll the Q-tip in and see if I can just get kind of a larger area painted. That works really nicely.